Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Exactly. So Isaiah Thomas, who was a teammate of Lonzo Ball for around the last 20 or so games of last season, just said some pretty interesting things about Lonzo Ball yesterday, particularly that he doesn't think that the Lakers are going to be able to fix his jumper. Lonzo is a great kid. I don't think they're going to be able to fix his jump shot, but they can work with him and get it better than how it is right now. He's a talented young player that's going to be a special guy in this league because he has the tools to be special. Here's my thing about the whole Lonzo Ball situation in regards to his jump shot, him not being able to shoot, him not being the best scorer. To that, I have to say, Lonzo Ball was never supposed to be a scorer in the first place. When he came into the league, his job was never to score the basketball. He wasn't scouted as a player that's supposed to be able to score the basketball. He's not supposed to be the type of point guard like a Damian Lillard, a Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry, Kyrie Irving, any of the scoring point guards in the NBA. That's not his game at all. And the only reason people thought that he was supposed to be like that was because, kind of like Brandon Ingram, when he was coming to the league, there were some people, some videos being made comparing him especially to Stephen Curry. And when you get compared to Stephen Curry and you're coming into the league and you get into the league and you can't shoot, and once again you were compared to Stephen Curry, the greatest shooter that the NBA has ever seen, oh, you can only imagine the amount of disappointment that will leave into the minds of people who once again thought he was going to be Stephen Curry when he was never supposed to be Stephen Curry at all. If anything, if you were ever supposed to compare Lonzo Ball to a player coming into the league, that player was supposed to have been Jason Kidd. And then if you compare Lonzo Ball to Jason Kidd, you wouldn't be disappointed at all. Jason Kidd in his rookie season put up 12 points, 7 assists, and 5 or 6 rebounds per game. Wasn't the best shooter, couldn't make a three to save his life. You compare that to what Lonzo Ball was able to do in his rookie year when he put up 10 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists per game. Obviously, he wasn't able to shoot either. So if you were to compare Lonzo to a player that was actually comparable to Lonzo, not saying that Lonzo is going to be the next Jason Kidd either, but their games are a lot more similar than the games of Lonzo Ball and Stephen Curry, you wouldn't be nearly as disappointed. You couldn't be disappointed at all, since Lonzo was never supposed to be an elite scorer in the NBA. That's not his game. Lonzo Ball's game is more of a all-around, just a great teammate, great player type of game where he does whatever it takes, whatever the team needs him to do to get the win. Defense, rebound, maybe eventually knock down some open threes, set his teammates up, things of that nature, along with a really high basketball IQ. That's Lonzo Ball. As for his shooting, sure, of course, you can say that it needs to be fixed. It does, because in this league, at the very least, you need to be able to knock down some open jumpers, and he wasn't able to do that last year. But I have no reason to believe that he won't be able to do that eventually. Once again, going back to Jason Kidd, he first came into the league, couldn't make a shot to save his life. However, what happened as his career progressed? When he left the league, one of his strongest assets he had left was his ability to knock down open threes. You even look at LeBron James. When he first came into the league, could he shoot? No, not really. That was a glaring weakness in his game, especially from distance. Now you look at him, and he is a more than respectable three-point shooter. Crying out loud, Andre Drummond is about to be shooting threes this upcoming season. So if you think Andre Drummond can learn how to shoot threes and Lonzo can't become a better three-point shooter, I seriously don't know what to tell you. Nothing will ever be able to change your mind, so I'm not going to tell you anything. So if Lonzo Ball can just knock down a couple of open threes a game, work on his free throw shooting, that's another thing. That's probably even more important than three-point shooting if you ask me. Making more than 45% of his free throws, yeah, that'll be huge. And become a better finisher around the rim, he's going to be a great player. He already does everything else extremely well. For a rookie, he was a really good player. So if he can just add that, as those areas up of his game, which there's no reason to believe he can't, because all of those things can be fixed with just a little bit or a lot of practice, then he is going to be a great player. And the next thing we gotta talk about, James Harden appears not to have completely moved on from blowing a 3-2 lead in the Western Conference against the Golden State Warriors. As he said this yesterday in an interview with Yahoo Sports, "It's on my mind every day. It's game 6, game 7. That's what drives me every day." You know, if I was James Harden, I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about it either, especially considering how he played towards the latter end of that series. Of course, in game 5, he was bailed out big time by Chris Paul. He couldn't make a shot. He was 5 of 20 around from the field, 0 of 11 from deep, had more turnovers than assists. Yeah, they were losing that game had it not been for Chris Paul. And then Chris Paul goes down at the end of game 5. Game 6 comes along. James Harden doesn't have the best game. He scores 32 points, but doesn't shoot the ball really well, and he's just not that effective. Game 7 comes along, and it's more or less the same as it was in game 6, if not even a little worse, considering no one else on the Rockets can make a shot either. So, considering how poorly he played when the Rockets were this close to making it to the NBA Finals and winning their first NBA championship, because whoever won that series was going to win the championship, I would be completely sick to my stomach if I was James Harden. If he had even an average game, a decent game, a good game in game 7, it would have been the Houston Rockets hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy after beating the Cleveland Cavaliers. And what makes things even worse for James Harden is that could very well have been his best shot that he was ever going to have of winning a championship, because the Houston Rockets have been an interesting talking point this offseason. Of course, when the summer first started, the thought was they're going to get LeBron James, or they could get LeBron James, and if they do, they automatically win the 2019 NBA championship. That, of course, doesn't happen. But not only does LeBron James spurn Houston and go to the Lakers, but the Rockets wind up losing Trevor Ariza, who, while he was terrible in game 7, let's not act like he wasn't a very important piece to that team. He was a great 3-and-D player for the Houston Rockets, one of their very few rotational players. So they lose him. They lose Luke Bahamute, who, kind of like Trevor Ariza, was very ineffective, especially the entire playoffs, but he was also dealing with a shoulder injury in the playoffs, so he has a little bit of an excuse. But during the regular season, he was also a key rotational piece for them. So they lost those two players, and in return got James Ennis, who's a solid bench player at best, Michael Carter-Williams, who this could very well be his last stop in the NBA, unless he has some miraculous turnaround in his career. And of course, they are on the verge of getting Carmelo Anthony. They're about to get Carmelo Anthony, and that's going to be very interesting. Not too many people are excited about the addition of Carmelo Anthony, considering how poorly he played last season. He was more of a burden than he was of a help to the Oklahoma City Thunder, especially with his refusal to come off the bench, even though that would have been for the betterment of the team. Add on to that every other team in the Western Conference, almost, maybe besides the New Orleans Pelicans, got better. It's going to be hard for the Houston Rockets to maintain the same level of dominance that they had last summer, which leads some people to believe that the Houston Rockets may have gotten worse this offseason. And James Harden also spoke on that yesterday, and here's what he had to say. Obviously, you can look at a roster and look at different players and say that, but you have to be on the court. You have to be in the trenches and be in the war. So I think he's trying to say that on paper, you can look at the Houston Rockets and say, yeah, they got worse, since both James Ennis and Michael Carter-Williams don't even equate to the level of production they got from Trevor Ariza last year. But overall, they didn't get worse, I guess is what he's trying to say. And I can understand why he's saying that, because let's be honest here. The Houston Rockets still have Chris Paul, they still have James Harden, they still have Clint Capella, and they still have Mike D'Antoni. As long as they have those 4 guys, they are going to be the same exact team. The other guys on the team just need to have a pulse, that's it, and they're still going to be just as good as they were last year. And that is where Carmelo Anthony comes into all of this, because just as good as they were last year will not be enough for them to beat the Golden State Warriors, especially since the Warriors added another top 10 to 15 player in the league in DeMarcus Cousins. So Carmelo Anthony is going to be the wild card for the Houston Rockets. If they are going to have the slightest chance of beating the Golden State Warriors and finally winning an NBA championship, they're going to need to find some type of way to get the most out of Melo and pray that he has a bounce back season from what he had last year. That, and of course, whether or not Chris Paul can actually stay healthy in the playoffs, because there's no way they beat the Warriors without a healthy CP3. And this is where the good news comes in for Houston, because the Rockets have Chris Paul, who was one of Melo's closest friends in the NBA, and Chris Paul knows Melo better than 99% of people in the NBA, including what he likes to do on the basketball court, where he likes to get the ball, and what he likes to do when he gets the ball. So he's going to be able to help Melo be better than he was last year, or he should be able to help Melo be better than he was last year. And it's not only that, but the Rockets actually have two guys that know Carmelo Anthony better than most people in the NBA. Mike D'Antoni, he was the coach of the New York Knicks years back, so he knows how to get the most out of Carmelo Anthony on the offensive end as well. Granted, the two of them did have a bit of a falling out in New York, and that's why D'Antoni quit, because he just couldn't take it anymore. But still, he knows how to use Melo, and he is one of the best offensive coaches that the NBA has ever seen. So, Carmelo Anthony, this is about to be the year. There are absolutely no excuses for him to underperform. He's on a team which honestly I think is the perfect team for him. So if Carmelo Anthony underperforms on the Houston Rockets this upcoming season, he just might need to think about retiring, either that or finally suck it up and come off the bench. And the last thing that we have to talk about today is Terry Rozier, who stirred up a little bit of drama on social media yesterday by tweeting out this: "All them drills won't make you a dog when it's wartime." And what he's doing here is referring to all of the NBA players who over the offseason have been recording their offseason workouts, recording themselves practicing, recording themselves trying to get better. And I guess what he's trying to say here is just because we see those players working, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be better come next season, since basically every other player in the league, whether or not they're recording themselves practicing, is also working on developing their game too. I get what he's saying, but at the same time, I don't get why he's saying it. I don't get why he appears to have a problem with players showcasing themselves working out, as if to say just because you are showcasing it, you're gonna be worse or you can't be better. I don't get what he's trying to prove here, what point he's trying to make. Some players like Terry Rozier prefer to work in silence. That's completely fine, nothing wrong with that. While other players like to show themselves working out, whether it be to motivate other people or just a way to interact with the fans. They know their fans like seeing the type of stuff, so they post it for the fans, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So I'm just having a really hard time wrapping my head around why Terry Rozier is trying to take shots at every player who posts their workout. Now though, it is time for the question of the day, where I ask you guys a question based on the things that we had to talk about in today's video. And today's question is going to be this: will Carmelo Anthony be enough to help the Rockets beat the Golden State Warriors, or will he hold them back kind of like he did to the Oklahoma City Thunder last year? Let me know your answer down in the comment section below. Be sure to use the hashtag QOTD in your response for your chance to get featured in the next video. And for yesterday's video, we talked about the report saying that LeBron's people feel that Brandon Ingram can be LeBron James and Scottie Pippen. And I asked you guys, is that a fair assessment? Is it fair to hold Brandon Ingram to the standards of being LeBron James and Scottie Pippen? And here's what you had to say: it makes no sense for Ingram to be Scottie Pippen. Those are big shoes to fill. Scottie impacted MJ so much, in my opinion. MJ would not have more than 4 rings if it weren't for Scottie. He's one guy that can do everything on a consistent basis. The year MJ retired for the first time, the Bulls only lost 2 more games. MJ was the cherry on top that brought everything from above average to elite. Therefore, Scottie's impact is irreplaceable, and Brandon Ingram got a lot to fill for him to be Scottie Pippen for LeBron. It's tough. It's that simple. When Broussard says Brandon Ingram can be like Scottie, I'm sure what he means is Brandon Ingram can be LeBron's number 2. Pippen was just used within the frame of reference of LeBron being compared to Jordan. Pippen was Jordan's number 2. Ingram will probably be LeBron's number 2. It's that simple. As a Sixers fan, I can say without bias that Brandon Ingram has a chance to have a very similar career as Pippen, and maybe even a better scoring talent. There were so many different types of answers yesterday, and I picked those 3 because I think they best summarize a majority of the responses. And the first one I want to talk about is the people who are saying that what they meant was Brandon Ingram can be LeBron's number 2, that they were just trying to say that as Scottie Pippen was Jordan's number 2, so Brandon Ingram can be LeBron's number 2. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, if that's what they meant, that's what they need to say. They can't just throw the name Scottie Pippen. You can't just say he will be LeBron's Scottie Pippen, because you're automatically, maybe even inadvertently, if that's what you're trying to say, comparing him to Scottie Pippen. If you want to say number 2, say that he can be LeBron's number 2 on the Los Angeles Lakers. Not that hard to say. We would completely understand what you're saying. However, if you're saying that he can be LeBron's Scottie Pippen, what you're automatically doing is holding the achievements, the accolades, the effect that Scottie Pippen had on Michael Jordan to Brandon Ingram. Those are the standards that you're trying to hold for Brandon Ingram, even if you inadvertently meant it. As for the comment that said something about Brandon Ingram having a similar career to the one that Scottie Pippen had, what I hope that person meant was that Brandon Ingram could become a similar player to Scottie Pippen in terms of what he's capable of doing on the basketball court. If that's what you meant, then I actually might agree with that a little bit. I'm not comparing Brandon Ingram to Scottie Pippen, but I'm just saying Scottie Pippen was a forward who could do everything on the basketball court: rebound, make plays, score the ball a little bit, and of course defend. Brandon Ingram in the second half of the season last year showed you all of that he could do all of that. The only thing is whether or not he can sustain it throughout the rest of his career, not just next season or over certain periods of time, and also whether or not he can keep up that defensive intensity, because Scottie Pippen was one of the best defenders the NBA has ever seen. He was always making all NBA defensive teams. So that's going to be a very big challenge for Brandon Ingram, but once again, he doesn't have to do that because he doesn't have to be Scottie Pippen. And overall, I agree with the first comment the most. Just stop it with holding Brandon Ingram to such high, unrealistic expectations. First it was Kevin Durant, now it's Scottie Pippen. You're just setting people up to be disappointed. You're setting Brandon Ingram up for failure. Anyways, remember to leave your answer for today's question of the day down in the comment section below, and like this video and subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you once again for watching. You guys are the real MVPs, and until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.